Hello, this is OC Skywatch. It is the 17th of November 2015, and I'm just going to make a short video showing the destruction of this low pressure northwest of Hawaii. I'm going to try to make this very brief. There isn't a whole lot to show. This animation here is pretty much where the last video left off at, November 16th, 5:30 to 9 Zulu. You can see what's happening here. There's a notch, I'm pretty sure at this point you know how the notches form. There's high pressure, and then high pressure, and then in between it's tight squeeze, the low pressure. What happened with this thing is, well, during the daytime, they made it look not so great, but during the nighttime, it rebuilt into a pretty decent low pressure, but then they pretty much crushed it, like they do with everything that interferes with their drought plan, whatever plan you want to call it. Anyways, before we get into that, there is some pretty strong northwest winds that happened the night that I made the last video, and well, it was caused by a tight pressure gradient between this low pressure here and this high pressure. Yesterday, the wind turned a more northeasterly direction because the low pressure and high were moving off to the east a bit. This is what's left of the low pressure that formed down here, but they crushed it. It's still trying to do some work, but unfortunately though, they're spraying some aerosols into it. Let me slow that down and zoom in. See, they can't let this thing go and interfere, bring rain to California. So what do? They just spray the heck out of it, and well, this pretty much does nothing in the end. You can also see dry air still expanding for no natural reason. Okay, let's move on to second map here. This is a few hours later. This is around daybreak in the Pacific, November 16th, 16:30 to 20 Zulu. This thing's starting to form pretty good now. It's turning into a pretty big low pressure. Unfortunately though, there's a lot of aerosols nearby and see a bit of air drying. Yeah, next to this dry air pocket getting a little bit bigger, start seeing a little bit of a clockwise rotation. Also towards the center, looks a little bit funny. It's like a hole here caused by descending dry air. Okay, let me slow this down. Kind of unusual. They were also pressing dry air down towards the south because, with warmer water, with the cold air meeting the warm air, that's going to create a bunch of explosive convection, and, well, they can't have that happen, so they just press a bunch of dry air down. Okay, how this low pressure formed, they were keeping this high pressure in place way too long, and the momentum pretty much encouraged this thing to spin up more, and yeah, that's how we got this. Let's move on a few hours later, November 16th going to the 17th, 20:32 0 Zulu, and the clockwise becomes more apparent. There's also this hole remaining. But seriously though, the clockwise and air getting drier is a dead giveaway that something is going terribly wrong with this thing. See, Mother Nature's trying to make this a nice, powerful, low pressure, but unfortunately though, she's being held back by dry air. Doesn't help that there's aerosols laced in this still. It's not good. To the south, dry air continuing to be pressed down. Let me slow down this thing so you see what's going on in this low pressure. There's a clockwise spin up towards the north side, towards the core. They cannot allow this thing to wrap around and cause some explosive convection, so they press a bunch of dry air down here on the western side and southern side. Also on the eastern side isn't looking so great. Sure, there's little storms starting to fire up on this front that's very vigorous, but this is very unusual amount of dry air over here. Okay, let's go on. This is November 16th going to the 17th. 22:32 2 Zulu. This is 2 hours later. See, Mother Nature's trying very, very hard to have this thing turn into a massive hurricane-like low pressure, but see the clockwise, this hole that's continuing to stay here towards the center. There's actually another hole next to it. Looks like there was a line of dry air and then it turned into one of those things. It's kind of weird, but still, clockwise rotation on the north side is very, very bizarre. See another thing trying to come down, and of course there's dry air here blocking it. Dry air's continuing to press down all around here. Very typical how they shut down a low pressure system. Also, right here, there's aerosols being laid, and that's gonna probably get sucked into the core. Interesting little formation here. Okay, this is visible, same time. What you see is towards the core of the system, there seems to be a weird opening in the clouds. There's also some bizarre activity on this side, the western side. Also see some pretty empty area, especially on the east side. It's kind of funny all around here. There might be dry air right over here. Very interesting. This is November 17th, 3-6:30 Zulu. Well, this low pressure is starting to get more disorganized. There's this hole here. Could this be another hole? But I'm pretty sure that it's being caused by dry air being pressed down. Anyways, there's some clockwise rotation here continuing, and very, very dry air pocket over on the east side, and south is pretty dry as well. Notice all these aerosols that are being laid towards the northwest and west of this system. That's just gonna suck up into the core and weaken it even further, I believe. It's not good. Towards the west side of this core, I see some dry air. There appears to be a counterclockwise right here. Very interesting. Mother Nature just wants one big low pressure system to reach the lowest energy state. Unfortunately though, she's being denied that, and this thing's just being crushed. Anyways, just look at this thing for a second. As these things develop, they're shoved off to the right. It's kind of interesting. Might also be some dry air being pressed down here covertly. They're attacking this thing from many angles, so I wouldn't doubt that they're doing that. Okay, this is long wave, same time. Okay, let's have a good look at this. Again, seems to be some clockwise rotation here. And unusual opening is most apparent on the east side. Again, you see a bunch of aerosols towards the west and northwest. See a lot of aerosols over here, and that's just going to help this high pressure. This high pressure is going to prevent this system from traveling to the east. Okay, this is a few hours later. Wow, what happened? This is November 17th, 23:30 Zulu. You can see that it's not looking good. There's multiple areas of counterclockwise and clockwise rotation. Clockwise here, counterclockwise here, counterclockwise here, clockwise, counterclockwise. You get the big picture. It's just not looking good. There also seems to be an aerosol attack on this thing directly now. See, look at that. the aerosols are going to create that hot air layer and help the ionospheric heaters crush this thing. The hot air layer is going to prevent more storms from popping off, prevent what Mother Nature wants. Let's look at the east a bit more. There's a bunch of heavy aerosols being laid down all along here, and again, that's going to create a capping inversion, prevent low pressure from forming, help keep the high pressure strong. See, there's a lot of dry air being pressed down here still. And right here is pretty much what's left of this low that came from over here. See, this is what happens to stuff that they don't want. It's destroyed. Interesting thing around the coast of Southern California. There appears to be a bunch of dry air being pressed down here. You know, what's also bizarre is this certain line right along here, the moisture just stops, so that tells me that there's a continued pressing of dry air all around. Let's look at water vapor before here. Pretty much the same area is being impacted. See the wind direction starting to turn up a little bit more towards the northeast because low pressure is moving away. This thing actually brought some crazy weather in this area. Anyways, just look at that for a second. Moisture's just suddenly disappearing in this one area. It's very bizarre. You can see little line things. Could that be wind or frequency? I know there's dry air being pressed down over here, so could be frequency. Anyways, let's go into visible now. Have a good look at this thing. See, it's not looking so well. Again, clockwise, counterclockwise, all that stuff's in here. See this unusual opening? That looks like a little roll cloud. Very interesting in here. Again, you see aerosols over here. And stuff towards the center of the high pressure. Very bizarre stuff. Just look at this interesting opening for a second. It's very odd. Okay. This is shortwave. You're going to see more detail. This stuff doesn't show up invisible. You can see towards this swirl there's some rapid expansion, dry air. It seems to be 2 or so. Very, very interesting. There's also aerosols over here that are being deployed. See, these things come out of nowhere. Still, man, this whole thing is a disorganized mess. See this front here? Still wanting to do something, but unfortunately though, I don't see it impacting us one bit. I see some spray up towards the northwest of this thing. Let's slow this down. I'm pretty sure these are coming from ships because they appear to be moving too slow for it to be airplanes, because this 8-frame loop is covering around 3.5 hours. A jet could probably cover like 1,500 miles in that time, maybe more. Also, towards the west coast, there's some very, very interesting lines showing up. I always see these things near high pressure ridges. Let's zoom in one more layer and See pretty much the same effect. I'm seriously convinced these are coming from ships, because they appear to be moving way too slow for it to be an airplane or jet. Very interesting. Okay, let's stop this. There's an unusual amount of detail. I want to hear your opinions on this. I see them around high pressure systems a lot. I wonder what the chemical contents are. Before the end of the video, I'm gonna give a brief overview of what's going on here. There's a bunch of aerosols up in the northwest, and it's extending down into California. It's all along this edge of the high pressure, also towards the center. Seems to be more like ship aerosols. Up towards this low pressure that's being destroyed, there appears to be more of these things. It's not good. And of course, you see this thing right here being totally decimated. Anyways, thank you for watching, and please share. This stuff must end. Because of all this stuff that has occurred recently, I'm guessing the drought has been extended another week or two. There might be a jet stream dip near the 25th of this month, but I'm not counting on it because they're probably going to shut down the rain like they did with the last dip. Okay, I think that's it. Alright, I just wanted to show you what's left of this low pressure. It has been a few hours. This is November 17th going to the 18th, 22 to 1:30 Zulu. It's even more of a mess. Looks like a very, very disorganized oval. I don't know if you can even call it an oval. It's just getting stretched out a lot. Wonder what this thing right over here is gonna do. It's probably gonna try to turn into a low pressure, but they're gonna prevent it. Anyways, aerosols are continuing to be laid down, of course, and you're continuing to see the clockwise and counterclockwise areas. Mother Nature's very determined to make this a giant low pressure, but unfortunately though, all efforts in vain. This thing's not going to do anything. Over towards the east, aerosols are continuing to be laid down, and dry air is still expanding. Again, this is the remnants of what came from over here. It's pretty much halfway back to where it started. Doubt this thing's going to do anything. Let's look at visible now. Pretty much the same deal. A bunch of open area and multiple clockwise and counterclockwise areas. Not much to show. Again, there's some aerosols being laid. See better towards the end frame. Alright, let's look at shortwave. Seem to get more detail out of that than visible. These little tracks right here are still showing up. This thing's a mess. And yeah. See the spray. Alright, I think that's it.